Michelle, when you first heard your dad was going to buy this property, were you thinking, I'm going to build a house on it, or what was that like?
Oh,
what was the story there?
No.
No.
It was 9 years that we owned the property before we even discussed.
Before any
building.
development?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, did he buy the property what did he buy the property for?
The idea was to have a family home.
Okay.
And, for them to possibly retire out there. And he actually had one of those, we had been looking for property in the Gorge area, and it could have been a house that was built already. It didn't have to be raw land.
Okay.
But he went with the realtor, saw the raw land, and he had one of those moments where it was like, he says he has almost like I don't know what you'd want to call it, like an epiphany, or just like such a kinship with that spot that he knew.
Yeah.
We had been looking for probably a year beforehand, so we'd seen plenty of other spots.
Uh-huh.
And he didn't even tell us really, actually. We found out after he purchased it.
Really?
And the whole thing went like that. He saw the land, was like, yep, this is it. Made the deal that afternoon. And I think called us that night and said, guess what? And it was like, wow, all right, you're that sure.
And you guys hadn't even seen the property or anything. Wow.
I know.
Well, it's obvious now when you look at it and you see this house and you're like, oh, who couldn't absolutely just be taken away with this place? But was the property, did you have that kind of a view and stuff at the time your dad bought it? Or did he have to do some clearing? And
Well, my dad had a great eye.
Okay.
I mean, he can see the vision. Not a lot of people can see, because we're proud to say we only took down 2 trees in the whole building of the property. And those trees were actually milled up in Trout Lake, and we have the remnants of those trees to make some tables out of that are on our Klaus and I's to-do list.
Uh-huh.
And, but the property itself was, fairly wild. I mean, it's on a hillside and it's fairly steep slope, as well as being, there was a lot of, scrubby oak and other bushes and stuff, and those had to be obviously cleared away. But
right, so just brush type stuff.
Absolutely.
So the home, okay, so let's go to when the concept of this house, where that starts coming into play. And were you thinking we're doing this sustainable from start to finish? I'm going to do this thing from the ground up? Or how did that start to formulate?
Well, I was working for a company called YOLO Color House, and then Klaus was working for another design build company in Portland. And again, it was, my parents kind of said, you guys are ready. You're ready to pull off and do your own thing. And at that point, I don't think either of us had been thinking that necessarily.
Because you were both working full-time jobs, and this was sort of a pet project at the time. You weren't thinking you were going to make this into a business.
No, we were. I mean, the bizarre thing for me is I keep a journal, and every year on my birthday, I write in that journal. And I always write what I want to do in the future. And I know that most people don't, most girls have dreams of, maybe more, beautiful things or, different things. My dream was to build a house. I know, it's so weird. It really is. I've always wanted to build a house from scratch. I really don't know why that is. But when I look back on my journal, which is better than my memory, I'm like, oh yeah, I did write that. I did think that. So that's been in the making, or somewhere in me, that I've always wanted to do it for a long time. And really, they gave us the platform. They said, yep, you're ready, let's do it. And while the process was going on, and there would be times where maybe Klaus and I really had to think through a certain step or a certain procedure. And I remember talking to my parents at one point, and they're like, well, yeah, we're nervous too. And I was like, oh yeah, of course you are.
Well, you're working with your husband on this project, working for your dad, just the dynamics. You guys must have a really close family, because a lot of families couldn't work on a project like that closely. Was that a problem or challenges, or did you guys have?
It was a total nightmare.
You're kidding.
I am kidding.
I could tell.
No, totally kidding. It was actually great. They totally stayed up. I mean, they were incredible clients, because they allowed us the creative freedom, which is incredible. That's the process that Klaus and I both really love, is the creative side. What could we do? Especially with reusing materials, or and they never really weighed in on it. So
they let you pretty much just do what you wanted.
yeah.
That's amazing, because most people, I would think, who get their first job, their first big project, it's not completely from the ground up on an absolutely amazing piece of property in the Columbia Gorge with this just incredible view. So you guys kind of struck gold on that.
You're telling me. I mean, seriously, we could have put a shack up and it would have been fine because the view is
the view would have,
great.
yeah, nobody would be even paying attention to what's
Right.
inside. But there is some amazing stuff inside. Tell me some of the things that you guys did with the recycling of some of the materials and stuff, the byproduct stuff. You guys did some really cool things with that. Tell me some of your favorites.
Well, I think the favorite in concept, not necessarily in actually doing
finish.
it.
Yeah. Oh,
well,
okay.
There's a wall behind the fireplace, and it's actually built out of 2x6s, and it's all of the framing lumber. And I was like, I literally would have a bag with me at the end of the day, and I would pick up the offcuts of the framing lumber. And, Klaus would be laughing at me, and I'm like, no, it's going to be a cool idea.
Did you envision it being what it became when you were picking up all those pieces?
I had this idea. I didn't know how long it was going to take, and I didn't really think it through. I'm really bad at thinking through, like, how it's an idea, and he always gets me on this where I'm like, how is it going to attach, though? I never really think it's like magic. I need like a magic glue, but he thinks that through for me, thank God. But I took those pieces home and I would sand them and oil them with this OS natural oil. And so this went on, and finally I had enough to make this wall that was behind there. But I didn't. I loved that because it was such an essence of, this literally is part of the house.
Right. Well, and the glass walls that I've seen, how you can actually kind of create different spaces. I think it's is it the lower level that has that? That's really cool. Whose idea was that?
Both of us. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say I'm more of the design side. Klaus is more of the build side, but certainly he helps me tremendously with the design side. I don't really know if I help him with the build side. I'm probably more of a hindrance, but he weighs in a lot on that, and especially seeing how, okay, this is the design that I have right now. How can you build it? It's incredible to have both sets of eyes on it at that stage.
Yeah, but his background wasn't really that detail oriented, was it? In construction, it was more kind of just broad.
Well, he's a chef by training.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's really the way his mind works, is my opinion on it. He's very bright. He knows, and he's very mechanically inclined. Mm-hmm. So he's able to look at a set of plans and kind of see where things are going to come together. A lot of people don't have that ability, and that's what helps our projects kind of come, I think, hopefully look good from on paper to actually in the field.
Well, from what I can tell, at least judging from this home, I'm very, very impressed. So I want to talk to you when we come back about the business that you have now developed and sort of the plans that you guys have going on into the future here. So we'll discuss some of those things when we come back. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
When we return.
Well, we do actually have a furniture side, and then we make a table, and maybe we make it out of the same tile that we used in the backsplash as onto the table, so there's
cool.
a continuity in materials and easiness on the eyes.
So everything's very custom and pretty much a one of a kind. Like you make a table for somebody, you probably aren't going to see that table ever anywhere else.
No.